This is the all-new GAC GS4, which, believe it or not, actually costs less than the previous generation model. And as a result, it's now one of the most affordable compact SUVs out there. Because size-wise, ito ay lumalaban sa Ford Territory at sa Geely Azkara, but at a price tag that actually puts it in line with the smaller Geely Coolray. Pero bago natin simulan ang review na ito, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell para lagi kayong notified whenever we review a brand new GAC. But first, the looks. In terms of yung kanyang design, hindi siya masyadong nalalayo sa previous generation GS4, though it's a strikingly designed compact SUV. Up front, sobrang prominent ng signature grille design ng GAC, and this is then flanked by full LED headlights. The side profile also looks equally striking, though if there is one gripe for us, that would be its wheels. Maganda naman siya tingnan, though we think that it looks too small para sa kanyang katawan. At the back, what easily stands out is its strikingly designed B-pillar, which also makes it look much more compact than it actually is. Because in reality, kasing laki nga nito ang Ford Territory, pati na rin ang Geely Azkara. And then lastly, you have a pair of sleek LED taillights, which look really distinct at night. Ngayon naman, dumako tayo sa interior ng GAC GS4. So as for the interior of the GAC GS4 and wow, actually, it's a really nice place to be in. I think among the Chinese cars that I've ever driven, this is gonna be one of the most premium that I've ever experienced now, in line with something like the Geely Coolray. There's plenty of soft touch plastics here on the top of the dashboard, itong sa doors. Even yung rear doors, by the way, have soft touch plastics sa upper part ng door panel, which is usually a rarity kahit sa Chinese brands and even the mainstream Japanese, American, European brands, no? So well done on the premium feel of the interior nung itong GAC GS4, no? I like the brown black leather combination dito. The leather feels rich. Ang ganda nung pakiramdam ng leather. And I like the seat design, no? Ang ganda nung design niya. Parang it's, which is what you would normally find in something like a Mercedes-Benz S-Class na meron ka nung, kasi sa A-Class, you have the integrated headrest, pero dito kasi it's ganito yung design niya. So basta, anyway, it's parang something similar to something like an S-Class in terms of the design at least, no? But yeah, it looks really nice. I like the silver, satin silver finishes dito. I am not a fan of the piano black sa gilid niya, but sa gilid ng center console, pero at least the places na you frequently touch, like itong parking brake, yung sa infotainment system, it's in matte gray, no, which is a good thing. So hindi siya yung, it looks nice din as well, apart from being resistant sa scratches, no. And then that also leads me to the car's features, no. So yun nga lang, as for the features, this only has a urethane steering wheel. You also only have analog gauges with the dot matrix screen, not exactly high-tech by today's standards. You also have an infotainment screen which is 8 inches nga lang. Well, 8 inches is actually pretty good, no? Pero compared to something like a Geely Azkara or a Geely Coolray, they offer a much bigger screen. And alam mo, it's meant to have a bigger screen. If you check yung kanyang mga press photos, no, sa China, you would see na meron siya nung dual screen layout, no? So sayang that feature didn't make it here. But the screen is actually pretty nice. The resolution is great. Okay, resolution niya. The touch response is also snappy enough. Not exactly the snappiest thing in the world, but pwede na. I also like yung logical layout ng mga menus niya, and I also like na meron ka nung controls dito sa center console. For the infotainment system, you have the switch, then yung main menu, home button dito. Your volume slider is also here, which is actually pretty intuitive, no? Kasi rather than reaching for the screen nang gumaganon ka, you can just push it here from the gear lever, which is actually pretty intuitive. It's really well done. And then also you have Apple CarPlay, which you can hook up your iPhone, yung nga lang no Android Auto. So that's one thing to take consider of if you're buying this car. But As a whole, it's a good interior. I like the premium finish. I like the features. I like the colors, the soft touch materials that are abundant sa kotseng ito. Even the door panels have a soft leather portion here. It feels really nice. Yun nga lang, in terms of features, yung mga counterparts sa Geely still lead the pack in terms of that regard. But yeah, one of the best interiors in terms of quality and design. Not just for Chinese cars, but sa price point, ito one of the best period. Moving on to the rear seats, and the GAC GS4 continues to shine. Yes, we have to repeat the fact na kapresyo nito ang Geely Coolray pati ang MG ZS. But the GAC GS4 is actually one size class higher. And as a result, mas maluwag ang kanyang rear seat space compared sa mga nabanggit nating mga kalaban niya. It basically offers the most rear seat space sa kanyang price range. And this is perhaps its biggest trump card compared sa smaller Geely Coolray and MG ZS. On top of its generous rear seat space, meron ka pang rear aircon vents and even rear USB ports. And then as for its trunk space, wala pa kaming official numbers from GAC, but the previous generation model offered 450 liters of space, which is actually more or less on par with other Chinese competitors. Now, powering the all-new GAC GS4 is a 1.5-liter inline-4 turbocharged gasoline engine, which produces significantly higher numbers compared to the previous generation model. As a result, this car drives and feels fast, and it's mated to an equally good 6-speed automatic transmission from the Japanese manufacturer Aisin. So as for the driving experience of the all-new GAC GS4, I'm actually enjoying the 1.5-liter turbocharged gasoline engine of this car because if you're gonna be watching my previous GAC GS3 review and then also pati yung aking upcoming review ng GAC GN6 na MPV, you'd notice na I'm enjoying yung powertrain niya ngayon. Dati kasi you have this sort of turbo lag na medyo it can be severe at times. May mga times na nasa stoplight ka, nasa mong umarangkada, it would take a lot of time before the transmission and engine. Siguro it's both combination, both turbo lag and transmission lag. Pero anyhow, the point is, pagdating dito sa GAC GS4, itong all-new model, maganda rin yung response ng kanyang powertrain and yung gearbox, no? So dati, I would often have to parang try to adjust or plan yung pagpasok ko sa intersection dahil nga lang sa lag. Pero ngayon, the engine and transmission are well calibrated ngayon. There's only a tiny bit of turbo lag. Actually, sa totoo lang, it feels linear nga ngayon eh. It feels linear. Hindi siya yung parang feeling na parang on-off switch yung kanyang throttle pedal. It's easy to modulate, no? Yung kanyang throttle while driving, especially in stop-and-go traffic. I've driven this in EDSA actually, and maganda yung kanyang calibration ng throttle niya pagdating sa yun nga, sa mga stop-and-go situation. Dati kasi there's that lag which can leave you often flat-footed sometimes, no? Which can leave you caught off guard minsan, and up yung nangyari yun. But yeah, ngayon, the engine transmission combination feels really good. Maganda yung pakiramdam niya. Hindi siya yung malag. It's really well calibrated, and the 6-speed automatic also shifts down to the correct gear most of the time, no? So there's really not much need to use the plus minus dito sa kanyang gear lever, which is awkward to use by the way kasi yung kanyang plus minus is on the handle mismo, like the one in Ford, sa mga Ford cars. Yun ang pakiramdam niya eh. Overtaken natin to. So napansin nyo doon, medyo nag-screech yung tires niya. That's the thing with small turbo engines nga lang, they can tend to, kapag yung talagang binirit mo at you're coming from like a slow speed, there's a time na may pagkakataon na the tires will screech, and that basically what happened kanina lang. But it's not too bad, sakto lang. It just means that the engine is torquey, and yes, speaking of torque, may potential siya to have torque steer kapag yung, let's say, you're exiting a corner. Pero hanggang dun lang naman. Total naman you're not gonna be treating this car like a hot hatch naman, diba? So ngayon, the powertrain, the chassis is also well engineered. So I'm going through a bit of bumps ngayon. Nasadya ko actually para matest yung ride niya. But the rigidity is actually quite good, no? So wala ka masyadong flexing, shimmying. Kahit meron ka nung panoramic sunroof, it's a well-damped, well-insulated chassis. And then, in terms of handling, we're gonna be going through a bit of corners ngayon. I'm gonna push this car sa kanyang grip limits. Not exactly what you would call sporty. As a matter of fact, the tires aren't that grippy, to be honest. So if you're gonna be pushing this car pagdating sa kanyang handling, medyo hindi ko siya gusto. So let's go through a bit of corners here ng enthusiastically. Apart from the tires, there's not much in terms of feedback sa wheel. So, the steering's light, and yun nga, pansin ko lang, it suffers from the typical Chinese car feel ng steering na ang super light niya and also dead in terms of feel. I prefer the steering feel of the GD vehicles. Mas maganda yung feel niya para sa akin, and this is one of those steerings na among Chinese cars nga na parang ang gaan niya, na talagang wala masyadong feedback. Again, not exactly important to the typical car buyer. As a matter of fact, I think they would like this kind of steering feel. Pero for something who wants a bit more feel, a bit more sportiness, a bit more mechanical connection to what's happening to the front wheels, then the Geely Coolray would be a better bet. Or the Geely Azkara. Those two cars would be a better bet on that regard. But, I mean, you know, for the most people just go from A to B, the steering's gonna be perfect for them. It's light, easy to drive, and yun nga, not much in terms of feel, but again, feel and feedback and responsiveness then, by the way, is only important mostly to car enthusiasts like us, no? But yun nga, it's really light, the steering wheel. Then as for the suspension, yeah, there's a bit of body roll when you go and push this car sa corners. And yeah, again, a Geely Coolray also feels more agile and sporty in that regard. But for most people who just want a comfortable, relaxing, small SUV, then the GAC GS4 does the job excellently. So now that we're in a highway, no, and again, yung impressive na refinement ng GAC GS4 na ito is even more evident. So again, road and wind noise for the class is kept at a minimum, no? So wala kang masyadong wind noise. Well, there is a bit, especially due to the mirrors. And in terms of tire roar, it's sakto lang for the class. Actually, not even sakto. It's above sakto. Good, basically. Not only that, but the way the suspension, the chassis has been tuned, ang stable ng pakiramdam niya. So ngayon, we're doing at 100 kph. Naka-cruise control tayo. And the car feels, you know, really relaxing to drive. Again, yun nga, as mentioned kanina, it may not have the sportiness of its rivals like the Geely Coolray, you know, so there's that. But again, for most people, this is gonna be what they're looking for, no? They want this relaxing nature. Ayaw nila yung parang may drama pa. This is basically it. Wala tong masyadong drama, no fuss whatsoever. It's a relaxing car to drive long distances. As a matter of fact, yun yung gusto ko sa mga kotseng GAC. They really feel excellent to drive pagdating sa mga mahabang biyahe. And that's despite the tires, no, have being in terms of grip, medyo pero yun, yun nga, in terms of the car's refinement, in terms of yung kanyang driving feel, it's really good out on the highway. Ang ganda ng pakiramdam niya. It's really stable, really refined. And the suspension deals with bumps pretty well. One complaint I have, however, is yung kanyang cruise control. I don't like how it works kasi you only have an indicator na the cruise control is working, but it doesn't display what speed you set the cruise control. So you end up guessing which speed you've set it. So tansyahan na lang, which is not exactly intuitive for me. But apart from that, fuel economy. Let's talk about the car's fuel economy. It's really good actually ngayon. So my fuel economy with this car ngayon is 8.8 liters per 100 kilometers, which more or less translates to around siguro 11-12 km per liter, which is really good for this kind of SUV. Actually, ito na nga yung medyo on the bigger end of the subcompact SUV segment. So, good job on that fuel economy, no? Kasi that's one thing with this car, So, yung kanyang powertrain, when you overtake cars sa expressway, usually, small turbocharged engines tend to have no hatak na pagdating sa high speeds or at the higher RPMs. This doesn't suffer from that problem with small displacement turbo engines. So even if you're traveling at 100, may hatak ka pa rin. Hindi siya yung parang hingal na yung engine mo. And again, just like what I said kanina, the turbo engine feels linear, it's well tuned. For me talaga, in terms of how I would rank the Chinese brands, Geely would be on top, then GAC would be on a close second. But it's mostly because of the fact na in terms of equipment, medyo hit and miss sa akin ng GAC, no? Kasi their cars tend to feel, siguro, compared to the Japanese brands, mas generous nga ang GAC for the price. But relative to what Geely offers, mas konti yung features nito. So, yeah, I would rank this even above MG because medyo hit and miss sa akin naman in terms of the driving experience ng mga kotseng MG. GAC is one of the best for me in terms of the driving experience, nearly as good as Geely. Ang edge lang kasi for me ng Geely is they tend to have this sporty feel with the Geely Coolray at least kasi nga nagka some degree of Volvo tuning kasi nga the platform has been developed with Volvo, yung BMA platform ng Geely. It's not a Volvo platform but it's developed with Volvo. Let's clear that up lang, no? So it's not a Volvo na binadge mo ka sa Geely. It's not an XC40 na mas affordable. No. That's not the case. But I digress. Basically, GAC is one of the best Chinese brands in terms of the driving experience. I put it really on one of the best for me. And it's not like it's just good for a Chinese brand yung kanang driving experience. It's really good, period. No. Hindi siya yung parang, hindi, maganda siya for the price. No. Maganda siya, period. Hindi yung tipong maganda siya considering yung halaga niya. Yun yung mga point ko with the driving experience sa mga kotseng GAC and Geely. Buying a GAC GS4 is quite simple. There's now only one variant to choose from. And remember ka ng features na nabanggit natin kanina? Yes, mas onti ang features niya compared sa Geely Coolray. But here's the kicker. Yes, this is a car from a class above the Geely Coolray in terms of size. Yet this SUV is priced at just 1,098,000 pesos, which practically makes it one of the most affordable compact SUVs out there, undercutting the Ford Territory and Geely Azkara by a couple 100,000 pesos. So, the GAC GS4 is now faster, more luxurious, and drives better than ever before. And what it lacks in features more than makes up for the fact that it's one of the best driving compact SUVs out there, which I think is a step in the right direction for GAC. After all, what makes a good car in the first place is not having the most number of features, but rather, a good car should be mostly based on how well it drives. And as we've seen ngayon, the GAC GS4 doesn't just drive well for a Chinese car. Because in reality, the GAC GS4 drives as good as any other Japanese, American, or European mainstream crossover SUV. But, of course, at a much more affordable price tag.